Let's set the scene. You're at a dinner party. Everyone's swapping the same old stories, laughing at jokes they've heard 100 times, nodding along to whatever's popular. Then, out of nowhere, someone drops a thought that slices through the chatter, something real, something that actually matters. Suddenly, the room goes silent. Not the kind of silence where everyone's hanging on the speaker's every word, but the awkward kind, the kind where people start fiddling with their napkins or checking their phones. What just happened? You've just seen one of society's oldest reflexes in action. The fear of intelligence. The fear of someone who sees things others would rather ignore. This isn't just a quirk of our social media age or the latest political trend. It's been with us for centuries. Arthur Schopenhauer, a German philosopher who never shied away from uncomfortable truths, saw this pattern more than 200 years ago. And honestly, his observations might be even more relevant today. It's like he handed us a mirror, and most people are afraid to look. Here's the tough pill to swallow. Society doesn't fear smart people because they're smart. It fears them because they force us to confront things about ourselves we'd rather keep hidden. Intelligent people don't just know more facts. They see through the stories we tell ourselves, the little lies that make daily life easier. Think about it. When was the last time you heard someone say, "I love hanging out with Jamie because they always call me out when I'm being fake"? Never, right? Most of us want to stay cozy in our comfort zones. Schopenhauer got this. He wrote about how most people live in what he called the world of appearances, a carefully built reality where we avoid anything that might shake up our beliefs or routines. But intelligent people, they're natural bubble bursters. They can't help but notice when something doesn't add up, and they're not afraid to say so. Society, on the other hand, would much rather keep the curtain drawn. Let's go back to that dinner party. Imagine you're watching a movie with friends. Everyone's loving the feel-good plot, the happy ending, the simple message. But you can't help but notice the plot holes, the cliches, the way the story glosses over the real messiness of life. Do you say something? Do you risk being that person who ruins the fun? For a lot of intelligent people, this is daily life. It's not about being a killjoy. It's just that their minds can't help but see what's really there, even when everyone else is content with the surface. Schopenhauer called this the burden of consciousness. The more aware you are, the more isolated you can feel. It's like being the only sober person at a wild party. Everything starts to look a little silly, a little off. And that's where society's fear comes in. Because if the intelligent person is right, if there really are uncomfortable truths hiding under our shared illusions, what does that say about the rest of us? About the lives we've built on those illusions? Let's get real for a second. Society is built on a web of agreements. We agree that this green piece of paper is money. We agree that certain lines on a map matter, so we call them borders. We agree that certain behaviors are normal, so we follow them. But what happens when someone questions those agreements? What happens when someone says, "Why do we spend decades working jobs we hate, just to buy things we don't need, to impress people we don't even like? Why do we accept that some people have more than they could ever spend, while others can't afford a doctor's visit? Why do we act like following the crowd is somehow more noble than thinking for yourself?" Suddenly, the foundation starts to shake. People who've built their entire identities on those agreements don't like that feeling. Schopenhauer saw this clearly. He knew that most people don't want the truth. They want comfort. They don't want growth. They want validation. They don't want to be challenged. They want to be agreed with. Intelligent people threaten all of that just by being themselves. Here's something Schopenhauer noticed that's still true today. People often react to intelligence the same way they react to danger. Their fight or flight response kicks in. Some people lash out, attacking the intelligent person. Others just avoid them, dismissing them as difficult or negative. But why? Because when you challenge someone's worldview, you're not just questioning their ideas, you're questioning who they are, their choices, their values, their sense of self. Think about the last time someone challenged something you really believed in. It probably didn't feel great. Maybe your heart raced. Maybe you got defensive or even angry. Now imagine feeling that way every time you talk to someone who thinks deeply about things. It's exhausting. It's easier to just avoid them. Instead of admitting that intelligence makes us uncomfortable, we invent reasons to justify our discomfort. They think they're better than everyone else. They're just showing off. They're too negative. They overthink everything. Sound familiar? These aren't real criticisms. They're defense mechanisms, ways to protect ourselves from feeling insecure or exposed. Schopenhauer didn't just write about this, he lived it. His masterpiece, The World as Will and Representation, barely sold in his lifetime. The academic world ignored him. Society dismissed him. Why? Because he told truths people didn't want to hear. He pointed out that most of what we do isn't driven by rational thought, but by unconscious desires and fears. He showed that what we call love is often just biology in disguise. He argued that free will is mostly an illusion. People didn't want to hear any of that. They wanted to believe in the noble stories about human nature, about love conquering all, about personal agency and progress. Schopenhauer's ideas threatened those comforting myths. But here's the thing, he didn't share these ideas to be cruel or superior. He genuinely believed that truth, even when it hurts, is better than a beautiful lie. And that's what scares a society built on beautiful lies. Fast forward to today. Social media has supercharged everything Schopenhauer observed. Intelligent voices often get drowned out by the loudest, simplest messages. It's like we're all being served intellectual junk food, easy to swallow, but empty. When someone tries to add nuance, they're labeled as elitist, pretentious, or out of touch. Schopenhauer understood that intelligence can be isolating, not because smart people want to be alone, but because real connection requires mutual understanding. If you see the world differently, if you're troubled by things that don't bother others, finding real connection is tough. It's like speaking a language hardly anyone else understands. You can get by with small talk, but the deeper conversations, the ones that matter, are out of reach. You end up performing a version of yourself that others can accept, while your real self stays hidden. This isn't about arrogance or superiority. It's about the ache of wanting to be understood, but always feeling a little out of place. It's the exhaustion of constantly translating your thoughts into something more palatable. Society sees this withdrawal and calls it snobbery. It sees careful self-editing and calls it pretension. It sees solitude and calls it antisocial behavior. Why do intelligent people trigger such strong reactions? I think it comes down to exposure. The fear that someone will see through our carefully constructed personas to the messy, uncertain reality underneath. Most of us work hard to appear competent, confident, and in control. We curate our social media, dress for success, learn the right things to say. We become masters of impression management. But intelligent people often see right through this, not because they're trying to, but because their minds are wired to spot patterns, inconsistencies, and deeper meanings. They notice when actions don't match words, when motivations don't line up with what's being said. This makes us feel exposed, vulnerable, and that's terrifying. So we protect ourselves by creating distance. We blame them for being too critical, too analytical, too intense. We make them the villain instead of admitting our own discomfort. Schopenhauer believed that most people live lives of quiet desperation, going through the motions without really questioning if those motions make sense. They follow scripts written by others, pursue goals they never really chose, and call it a successful life. Intelligent people rebel against this mediocrity, not out of arrogance, but out of necessity. They ask questions like, is there more to life than this? Are we following the wrong script? Is happiness really about more stuff and higher status? These questions are dangerous because they might lead to answers we don't want to hear. They might reveal that we've been chasing things that don't actually make us happy. What I admire most about truly intelligent people is their willingness to stand alone with their convictions, even when it means being misunderstood, excluded, or attacked. They won't compromise their integrity for social acceptance. This isn't stubbornness or pride, it's moral courage. It's the recognition that some things matter more than being popular. Truth matters more than comfort. Authenticity matters more than approval. But society often misreads this courage as arrogance. We interpret their unwillingness to compromise as a judgment against those who do. We see their independence as a rejection of community. We mistake their integrity for superiority. This creates a tragic cycle. Intelligent people feel misunderstood, so they withdraw further. Society sees this withdrawal as confirmation of their antisocial nature. The gap widens, the misunderstanding deepens, and both sides become more entrenched. Despite all the fear and resistance, intelligent people offer society something invaluable. They serve as our conscience, our reminder that we can do better, be better, and think more clearly about what really matters. They're the ones who point out that the emperor has no clothes, even when everyone else is too polite or too scared to notice. They're the ones who ask hard questions, challenge comfortable assumptions, and refuse to let us settle for less than we're capable of. This is a gift, not a curse. But like many gifts, it's often rejected by those who need it most. We'd rather stay comfortable in our illusions than deal with the discomfort of growth. Schopenhauer understood this. He knew that truth-tellers rarely get rewarded in their own time. He knew that society prefers pleasant lies to difficult truths. But he also knew that progress, real progress, only comes when someone is brave enough to see clearly and speak honestly about what they see. If you're someone who thinks deeply, questions boldly, and sees things others miss, this is for you. Your intelligence isn't a character flaw that needs fixing. Your questions aren't problems that need solving. Your different perspective isn't something to apologize for. Society's discomfort with intelligence says more about society than it does about you. But here's the thing, and this is important. You don't have to choose between intelligence and connection. You don't have to dumb yourself down to be loved. You don't have to hide your insights to be accepted. What you need to find are the people who appreciate depth, who value authenticity, who aren't threatened by someone who thinks differently. They exist. They're out there, probably feeling just as isolated as you do, wondering if anyone else sees the world the way they do. Schopenhauer believed that consciousness was both a burden and a gift. The burden is the loneliness, the isolation, the constant awareness of things others prefer to ignore. The gift is the richness of inner life, the depth of understanding, the ability to see beauty and meaning that others miss. The key is learning to carry both gracefully. This means accepting that you might never be understood by everyone or even by most people. It means finding peace with being different, with seeing more, with caring about things that others dismiss as unimportant. But it also means using your intelligence wisely, not as a weapon to attack others' ignorance, but as a tool to build understanding, not as a wall that separates you from humanity, but as a bridge that connects you to those ready for deeper connection. Let me be clear about something. We need questioners, thinkers, and people brave enough to challenge comfortable lies. We need individuals who won't settle for shallow answers to deep questions. Society might fear intelligence, but society also depends on it. Every breakthrough, every innovation, every step forward in human civilization has come from someone who was willing to think differently, to see what others couldn't see, to ask questions others were afraid to ask. Your intelligence isn't just a personal trait, it's a responsibility. You have a duty to use it, to share it, to let it contribute to the world's understanding, not with arrogance or condescension, but with compassion and patience for those who haven't yet developed the courage to see as clearly as you do. Arthur Schopenhauer spent his life being misunderstood, dismissed, and ignored, but time proved him right about human nature, about the unconscious forces that drive our behavior, about the illusions we create to make life bearable. Today, his insights form the foundation of modern psychology. His ideas about the unconscious mind influenced Freud and Jung. His thoughts on the nature of suffering shaped entire philosophical movements. The world eventually caught up to his intelligence. The same will happen for you, in your own way, in your own time. The intelligence that makes others uncomfortable today will be the insight that helps others tomorrow. The questions that make people squirm now will be the answers that set people free later. Society's fear of intelligence is really society's fear of growth, of change, of having to examine itself honestly. But growth is inevitable, and change is constant. Honest self-examination is the only path to genuine progress. Your intelligence is part of that path. Your questions are part of that journey. Your refusal to accept comfortable lies is part of humanity's slow, difficult, necessary evolution toward greater understanding. Don't let society's fear dim your light. If this resonated with you, if you felt seen and understood by these ideas, then you're exactly the kind of person who needs to hear this message. Don't let society's discomfort with depth make you shallow. Don't let their fear of questions make you stop asking. Hit that like button if you've ever felt misunderstood for thinking too deeply, and share this with someone who needs to know they're not alone in seeing the world differently. Because intelligence isn't the problem, the fear of intelligence is, and it's time we stop being afraid of thinking clearly about what really matters. If you've ever felt like the odd one out for thinking differently, you're in good company. Keep asking, keep thinking, and keep shining your light, because the world needs it now more than ever. And here's something else worth remembering. The journey of the intelligent, the questioners, the seekers, it isn't always a lonely road. History is full of people who were dismissed, ridiculed, or even ostracized in their own time, only to be celebrated later for the very insights that once made others uncomfortable. Think of innovators like Nikola Tesla, whose ideas seemed outlandish until the world caught up. Or writers like Emily Dickinson, whose depth went unrecognized while she was alive, but now inspires millions. The same pattern repeats. Society resists what it doesn't understand, but eventually it grows because of those who dared to think differently. So if you find yourself feeling isolated or misunderstood, take heart in the knowledge that you're part of a long tradition of thinkers who have shaped the world simply by refusing to settle for easy answers. The discomfort you experience today may be the catalyst for tomorrow's breakthroughs. Every time you choose honesty over convenience, depth over shallowness, you plant seeds for a wiser, more compassionate future. Don't underestimate the ripple effect your courage can have. Sometimes, all it takes is one person willing to ask the hard questions to give others permission to do the same. Your willingness to be authentic might inspire someone else to drop their mask, to speak up, to connect on a deeper level. That's how real change begins. Not with grand gestures, but with everyday acts of integrity and insight. So keep questioning, keep thinking, and keep searching for those rare souls who appreciate your depth. Celebrate your curiosity, nurture your inner life, and remember that even if your perspective isn't always welcomed, it's always valuable. The world needs more people who aren't afraid to see clearly, to feel deeply, and to speak honestly. You're not alone, and your light, no matter how misunderstood, is absolutely essential.